Maskani, everyone. This is Professor Alman Rahh, Professor Emeritus, California State University, Long Beach, Africana Studies Department, former City Councilman for the City of Compton, former Compton Unified School District Board of Trustees, and former Compton College Board of Trustees. We want to welcome you here to the Conscious Corner, and where we speak truth to the people, speak truth to power, and speak truth to ourselves. We want to say Sante Sana, which is many thanks to Brother Rashaki Maskani for providing this platform on Community Education Network that he's created to inform and educate our people, each one teach one. And then at the same time, we want to welcome Sister Lynda from Florida and Brother Sharawa from Atlanta. And we probably get joined by other people. Tonight's topic is going to be a very challenging topic from the standpoint of people understanding of what's really going on. What happened in Springfield, Ohio, when during the debate with Kamala Harris, a former president and Republican nominee for president, said that Haitians were eating cats and dogs, people's pets in Ohio. And it has created a lot of problems for the Haitian community that was welcome and encouraged to come and work in Springfield to help boost this economy, which they did. And there's no proof nowhere by the mayor, the police, and even individual citizens that any of their pets are missing, unless more being eaten by Haitians. But because of that rumor, they had to shut down schools. They had to escort some students to school with National Guard. They had to shut down other municipal places, and that the Haitian community is under threat. And so we're going to discuss why would someone say that about the Haitian people that was living peacefully, coexisting with the people in Springfield, Ohio, and all of a sudden there's a hatred and a divide of practicing terrorism against the Haitian people in Springfield. But let's get down to it. Lynda, have you Florida is one place where that's where many Haitians live. Matter of fact, the majority of Haitians live in the Florida area. They even have a little place they call Little Hades. But have you heard anything about the Springfield assertion that the Haitians were eating cats and dogs? And what did you hear, and what's your position on it?
Okay, the only thing I heard is when that fool Donald Trump said something. And then that's the only time I heard it. And I have a lot of friends, first of all, that are Haitian, that I respect and love.
Okay.
And it was just lies that to divide black people and to make people hate black people more. That's all it is. Just lies, and more lies. Because the friends I have know that they all vegetarians, absolutely. Yeah. And they're always trying to tell me how to eat to live.
Good. Do you know anything else about the Haitian people and the Hades and its history?
No, I don't. I don't know anything about the history of it, really. I just know, what I've read, very little. And the people that I know, I like and I respect, and like I said, they're friends of mine, and will still remain friends for a lifetime.
All right.
And I've apologized to them too, because I said, listen, I don't know what idiot said that, but you don't let it bother you. Just keep doing what you do.
All right. And Sharara, what's your knowledge of Hades, and what do you know about the Springfield, Ohio assertion that they were eating cats and people pets? And
I think all of that is a distraction. It's a media distraction. That's all it is. It's a political year for the presidency, and there's just a lot of things going on. Haiti is very important in the Black world. Matter of fact, the whole entire Caribbean islands You know, the main ones is Cuba, Haiti, and Jamaica. You know, and everything that we know in America about those places is a lie. Most of what we know about America, that Americans know about America, is a lie. Most of what Americans know about themselves is a lie. We cannot be distracted by this. We are an extension of the liberation movement, the Black liberation movement. And we're the outcome of what happened in the 60s and the 70s. You know, that in the 60s and 70s, that was a movement. It was a movement. We are the fruits of that movement. When they took Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, that really drove it's like being shot in the chest with a double-barrel shotgun. The Black people in America, that was the effect it had on us. When they dismantled the Black Panther Party, it was like a shotgun being blown in our chest. But we came through that. If you notice, when the borders were opened up once Biden got into office, because immediately the borders became open once Biden got in, all the other people was coming in, but the Haitians were being turned away. There was live footage showing that. Men on horseback, Caucasian men on horseback, beating the Haitians back. So for us to even be sitting here talking about them and this foolishness about eating dogs, that's absolutely absurd. You know, and I think we need to be more. We need to be a smarter and a brighter people than we are today. You know, after all, if you look back a few months back, the leader of one of the leading countries and powers in the world, Russia, and Vladimir Putin, stood up in front of the entire world and declared that the Black man, the Black people, is Christ, and that his country, Russia, will follow the Black Christ. That was his words to the entire world. And there are a lot of other Caucasians in this world that know this truth and are speaking, but it's not being aired by the mainstream media. And so, you know, we as a people have to decide, are we gonna be now who we are? Because we can't hide it no more. We don't have no excuses no more to be the Christ people that we are, the people that is filled with God to the brim and overflowing with God. Or are we going to continue to struggle? Or are we going to unite and be obedient as God has said for us to be obedient, to unite, love one another, and love God with all our being, all our hearts, and everything, with every fiber of our being? Are we going to do that? Or are we going to continue to allow the Caucasians and the mainstream media to continue to denigrate us through their media system? All the same stuff is a distraction to me. It's a total distraction. With the P. Diddy stuff and the J's, all that's a distraction, because what are they doing? They're distracting you from the arrests that's supposed to be happening with these political figures that have committed treachery and treason against this country and its citizens. You don't hear nothing about Mr. Fucci, you don't hear nothing about the Bill Gates, you don't hear nothing about those people who have killed millions of people across the globe. They want to talk about the Haitians, though, eating dogs. Come on.
Haitians, yeah.
You know, the Haitians don't even do that. That's not a part of it. If there was like Chinese or something like that, or Vietnamese, I could understand people saying that, but they're not. And Haiti got so much minerals. They got gold, and it got several minerals, but they're not talking about that. Jamaica, they just discovered over 50 billion barrels of oil in Jamaican territory, but you don't hear about that. They're talking about Vibes Cartel. You know, they're talking about the prime minister and violence. You don't hear about those things. You know, so we have to dig for our information, and we have to put our information out. We need to ignore Main Street media. We need to ignore them, not listen to them, not hear them, but ignore them, because their information is lies, all the way around lies. You know, we have to stop, and we have to stop the liberation movement and just become liberators. Okay, that's what the liberation movement produced in this time in 2024. We are supposed to be functioning not as liberation movement trying to get liberation, but we are supposed to be liberating our people ourselves. And the young people are not a part of that. They're the one that has to be liberated. And we are the ones that have to liberate them, because we are the fruits of the liberation movement. They are the beneficiaries of the liberation movement. And we are not doing that as adults. You know, we're looking at the children like they're supposed to have some kind of plan. What plan would they have? They didn't create the environment in which they now exist in. They're a product of the environment. We created it through integration, civil rights movement, all of these Black Power movement, Pan-African movement, and all of that. We need to now be that movement instead of activating like we're creating it, or no, it's already been done. Malcolm already came. He already did what he did. Martin already came and did what he did. They had two different approaches to the same problem, but guess what? The same result, assassination. What more do we need? Whether we're meek and mild like Martin, or we're firm and strong like Malcolm, radical, revolutionary like Malcolm, we still get the same bullet. So why are we now, you know, in a state of controversy? Like we can't figure it. No, we are the product of the Black liberation movement. It has always been about resistance. It has always been about liberation. And I, for one, like I say, death before dishonor, taking no prisoners. I will not surrender, and I will not retreat. Period.
Okay, good.
Revolution will not be televised.
Right. Thanks, brother, for that. Brother Mshinda, you there? Brother?
Present.
Yeah, brother, it's good to see. How's Louisiana?
Oh, man, it's a battle every day.
I hear you. We were talking about Springfield, Ohio, where Trump and J.D. Vance advanced the notion that Haitians were eating cats and dogs. And I was trying to find out, why would they say something like that? And what do you know about Haiti?
Well, you know, I mean, what I know about Haiti, I've never been to Haiti. I know people who've been there. My dad been to Haiti back in the day. And, you know, just understanding the history, you know, you guys might have covered some of it, you know, basically, you know, going to war for what they believe and took their independence, you know. And so it's that old thing, when you stand up to them folks, you're gonna have a problem, you know, or they're gonna try to put their foot on your neck or try to keep you from progressing. So so this dog and cat thing, you know, that's just a continuation of their narrative. They like to say, oh, we're uncivilized, and they try to push that we're cannibals, we're this, we're that. And we've been hearing that type of stuff for years, you know, just to try to degrade us, to try to make us, you know, second and third class citizens, and make us, you know, less than human beings and all these other things, you know. So Trump was appealing to that base, that reinforcing. He doesn't understand the history, really. He doesn't. He's ignorant, but he's got his handlers, and they're pushing this narrative, and so that's part of it. You know, they're eating the dogs and the cats and their pets and all, and the government, that the local government there refuted that and said, you know, it's a bunch of bull. You know, these are these are legal residents, they got permits to be wherever they at, and things like that. So, but for him, so he's pushing that immigration narrative, trying to get in there with the, using the economy and immigration as his number one uh, political tool or ploy to try to get him in office. But at the end of the day, he can care less about any of that. It's a bigger picture for him, but he's trying to taint the minds. This kind of campaign has been going to war with them cats, and they took back their land. The French, Spanish was over there on the island of Hispaniola, and they took back their piece. And to this day, you can go on YouTube and they like to talk about the gangs and the warlords that are trying to they they're doing illegal activity on the island and things like that. It's like civil war. It's like unrest going on. That's what they portray it as. But then there's parts of Haiti where that's not going on. But they're not going to tell you about that. They're not going to tell you that it's like being in LA. They got some bad neighborhoods in LA. You go down that street, you might not make it out. But in New Orleans, oh, I ain't going to New Orleans, man. You can go to New Orleans, but certain places it's a little rough, a little rough. That's anywhere. So they put the whole stigma on the whole city, on the whole part of the island of Haiti. It's the same dynamic. So that's all it's doing. It's I think Chirara covered it really well. It's to divert your attention on something else. There's a bigger agenda, and so they're using this as a subterfuge and to take your mind in another place, and we can argue about all these little hot button issues while they're taking care of some other things. They create the argument or the dissension or the debate, and the average person may sit around and get caught up in that vortex, that circle of BS, and while they're carrying out, instead of like today, and I'm gonna shut up in a minute. Today, I'll give you a little microcosm of something. I was on the campus, and these young brothers are on campus. They in a program. They learning a trade. And so they like the ladies, and so they come from down. They'll leave their area and go down and see some of their friends, or try to holler at some of the girls, like young guys do. They're looking for a girlfriend or whatever, but they're not disrespectful or anything. They're on a college campus, but it's not a huge campus. So at the end of the day, one of the senior administrators of the campus, he went in there and told them that, and we had a blood drive today. We had a blood drive. The little guys went in there, gave some blood, and they went back to class. So class is usually over around 2 o'clock, 2:30. Well, here it is around 2:15 or whatever. Them guys is coming back up, getting ready to go home, and the guy was like, "Why you guys aren't in class?" And they said, "Well, we're out of class. You guys have been hanging out here," and I could vouch for them that no, they hadn't been hanging out. But the whole point of it is these guys, these youngsters, they like 19, 20, 22 years old at the most. They are confident. They got a little swag about them, as they say, meaning that they're confident. They're not overconfident. They're respectful. And, they may be a little rough around the edges in certain regards where, but we try to cultivate their minds and try to, at least I'm trying to give them some nuggets of truth and tell them to learn how to move in life and avoid the enemy and things like that. But I do little small groups because I don't, some of the things I be talking about, I got to watch what I'm doing too. But at the end of the day, it was a prime example of they don't like the brothers who are confident and look them in the eye or challenge them. Hey man, what am I doing? Why you pick like a cop pulling you over? Why'd you stop me? Same thing. And then they don't have no shut up and just let me and do what I tell you to do, like they did Tariq Hill. They pull you over, you tell me to raise my window down. And so it's all synonymous with the mindset of those folks and how they feel about us. That's just the way it is. So I told these young men, you got to be mindful where you at. I mean, the belly of the beast does exist. I said, now it doesn't have to exist in your mind, but you gotta understand, you gotta know how to move in this life, you know. So but anyway, it's the same old narrative about, they don't want they're gonna bring up these accusations and these insinuations about or describing who we are as a people. Come on, man. Like, spare me. How can you define who we are? But anyway, that's my take on it.
All right then. Good, brother. Appreciate that. Brother Ahi, you there? Brother Ahi? How you doing, bro? How Detroit? You on mute. You on mute.
Okay, I'm off of mute.
Yeah. How you doing, brother?
Oh boy, long to continue. The struggle continues and it don't stop. The brother was talking earlier about the young people and the struggle and being able to pass this lineage on. And I'm just getting back from a Black Men Builds circle. And it was a wonderful thing on one hand to sit there and watch these young people discuss the very things that we're talking. They brought out Malcolm's The Ballot or the Bullet, and listened to that speech and then discussed it. Certain parts, everybody was allowed to go up and write on the board what they took from the speech and write and so forth and so on. But they're basically coming down there. We're talking about the same thing that he was talking about then. When are we going to write it down and move on? It's a perpetual state circle. They're talking about the education. It starts right there, being able to educate your own. And the fact that the struggle is always on the shoulders of a few. Same old song, very familiar. And the beat goes on.
Are the people talking about the Haitians being told that in Springfield, Ohio, that they're eating cats and dogs, and now they had to close schools and close municipal buildings and churches, been threatened with bombs and things of that nature? Have you heard anything about that?
It's you get so tired listening to these people. If it's not one thing, it's another. Trying to fact check these people, it becomes like mundane. Trying to fact check these people, all the lies and twisted truths and stuff that they're throwing out there. No, it's not. I think those people who are going to have made up their minds, they have made up their mind at this particular point. And it's just another line that this guy, he's just outrageous. He'll say anything and has said anything. And this is just another pile on the heap. And no, quite frankly, it's just like the mass gun shootings. We'll mention it in passing. When it happens, and a couple of days later, it's on to something else.
All right. I like that beard you got, brother. It looks nice on you, brother.
Yeah. I'm tired of the young girls calling me sir, though. Let's get past that.
Well, man, at least they recognize you.
Yeah, there you go.
Brother Rashaki, have you heard anything about the Haitian issues?
Yeah, I heard bits and pieces on Democracy Now! They usually cover information like that. And, it's everything that you said, you mentioned, Professor Rahh, and Brother Mshinda mentioned about the government and everybody else saying that, well, no, that didn't happen. And so, again, it's propaganda, trying to sway people to think a certain way, basically everybody covered it. And then I just want to kind of extend a little bit about what Chirara was saying about the concept of Black people or people coming together. I've been listening to Neely Fuller for well over 10 years. And he said that, coming together to do what? And I listened to it today, today's show. And in the concept, he mentions we come together with a code of doing and behaving. And I think that he's hitting the mark when he talks about that. I don't know if any of you listen to Neely Fuller, especially as much as I do, because other than this show and the level set, that's like the shows that I kind of listen to, other than I'll chime in on some other shows. Due to the fact that we cover a lot of information here, it's a challenge to always go to other sources and look at other things because I'm so busy with this. But I think we have to come into realization that when we speak of coming together, I think we need to really focus on the behavior and the mentality when we do mention coming together, because I think it has to do with that. When you come together, you got to have a specific goal in mind, a way of doing things. And I want to mention the show that we did last Tuesday with our collective podcast team with Dr. Maulana Karanga. And the things that he talked about made so much sense. In the Kayawida philosophy, drawn from the best of all African thought and culture, I think that those are things that are more sensible than what we've as a collective group been doing. And I'm starting to understand more just by being here with Professor Rahh, and how Professor Rahh speaks about the Kayawida philosophy. We have to become, and this is just my opinion, we have to get very literate with what makes sense. And so when I look at what Donald Trump said about the Haitians, that doesn't make any sense at all. And just for the fact of getting votes, you just say anything that comes to your mind, or like Professor Ross said, you have your handlers and they're telling you to say certain things. We really got to see these people for who they really are, and start doing some things very different than what we do. And I think that we're on our way. Just like Brother Chihuahua says, we're doing some things now. And so I think we just keep doing what we're doing and keep the focus. Things will get better than what they are, because that's ridiculous. The Haitians was eating dogs and cats or whatever he said. It just doesn't make any sense. But that's all I have to say at this point.
Appreciating what all been said, and it's beautiful words. Like Sharawa said, the struggle continues, and it's very challenging, like Mshinda said, with regards to how the people are treated, and struggle with regards to trying to just be young men trying to make the best of themselves and still be harassed. And as he said, I appreciate what everybody said. It was beautiful information. I just want to say a few things. First of all, we're taught in Kawida that there are 4 elements of the struggle: education, mobilization, organization, confrontation, and transformation. You show me a revolutionary, I'll show you someone who studies. And many of the people that contributed to our knowledge of self and direction and purpose and direction, you can go back far, all the way back to the ancient history. They were scholars, Imhotep, multi-genius, all the way up to Akhenaten and Zinga women. I mean, education and knowledge is very important, and the ability to think for yourself and think for the best for your people. When it comes down to the Haitian situation, it's a very challenging thing because many people, as Sharava would say, they need to learn how to read a new way of thinking. It's hard to, under oppression, to think other than what the oppressor force you to think, or pay you to think, or seduce you to think, and his way. So when we look at our young people, many of them don't know nothing about Haiti, or where it's at. And they sometimes think when they say Haiti, or say, Brazilian or Belize, that these are separate people from them. But Haitians are Africans. They got to that part of the Caribbean the same way we got to North America, some of our families. And their indigenous home is the continent of Africa. So the demonization of Haitians is a continuing demonization and of us, as a people. And that has been ongoing to justify the enslavement that we are non-human. So, when people talk about Haitians eating cats and dogs, they're talking about Black people or Africans eating dog. And as Sharad would say, most of that's in Asian community, Vietnamese and things of this nature. They do that. They eat puppies and stuff like that. But and sometimes in Mexico, they used to tell you don't eat the tacos because they're full of dog meat. That was a rumor. I don't know how true it was because I never bought none down there. But when we used to go across the border in the old days. But Haiti's has a unique history as one of the initiators to further our struggle on this continent to get free also. Haiti's was the first, one of the first, but if not the first, Africans that were enslaved, that overthrew the slave owners. It took a long time, up to 1800, 1809, all the way up to 1892. It was a struggle. There were many attempts for Black people to overthrow their enslavers for years, but Haiti's was successful and formed the first independent African country from enslaved people. That also influenced rebellions and further rebellions in North America and in Europe. And so therefore, America demonized Haitians and paid them back for that, and still crucifying them for what they did to the French, to America, who put a blockades on Haiti to get them to agree to pay reparations to the French for getting free. Over $100 million back in them days, and they still extrapolate resources from the Haitian people, and that's why they want to put their government in charge, because when Aristide, who duly elected in 1991-92 refused to acquiesce to American, French, and Europeans' desires, they overthrew him. But let me finish. Haitians served as a model of what could be done without the sophisticated weapons and without the military training that the Europeans and the French had. Defeated them once they came abroad and wanted to fight in Hades because they knew the land. And they overthrew some of the most powerful armies with cannons and the various forms of weaponry that they had. And that, up to this day, America, along with other European allies, still punish Hades for being that example and defeating them, Napoleon and all of them. You understand? I mean, it's very critical for you to see this coordination. Like they still hate Africans that freed themselves during the Holocaust of enslavement. They still demonize and hate Black people that fought for civil rights. They still hate and deify Black people for the Black Power movement. Richard Pryor said in a joke once that America got some new Indians, and he was referring to Latinos. You want to stop the Latinos from coming? All you have to do is tell the companies that's hiring them and individuals that's hiring them, it's against the law to hire non-citizens, especially with no papers, and it's against the law for the Catholic Church and all of them to serve as safe havens and the sanctuaries for these people that come. Well, the only three things they have to do. People come here to work. And if you ain't hiring them, they ain't coming. But the point is they focus on the people. They demonize the people coming over, and at the same time, they hire them. It's just like Biden saying, we're for peace in Hamas and Israeli conflict and genocide, but still sending them bombs and weapons to kill the people. You understand? And they say, oh no, we're against all that. They're killing too many of them. Well, one is too many. A citizen, an innocent, but what do 12-year-old babies and kids got to do with Israel defending itself? Under the auspices, everybody has a right to defend themselves. But anyway, let me get back to Haiti. So the attack on the Haitians in Springfield came about because some woman named Erica Lee posted on Facebook that her neighbor was told her that her dog and her pets were missing, and she suspected Haitians. Then people began to research it, and they found out that that lady that she said told her name was Kimberly Newton. Kimberly, well, first of all, Erica Lee said she didn't think that nobody would, take it the way they took it. And she found out that none of that, what she printed, was true. And this lady named Kimberly Newton, who she said told her, Kimberly Newton said, I'm not a racist. I got biracial relatives, and I'm biracial. She didn't say what racist. But at the same time, she admitted there's no proof. But Donald Trump and J.D. Vance advanced it anyway without any proof and still are doing it. But the cold part about it is all of y'all said it don't make no sense. Then why are the white people doing it, believing it? They believe in it because they're racist. And they don't care if it's true or not. As long as it's against vulnerable people and you got all the weapons, you can impose your will, whether it's true or not. It doesn't matter. That's what they did in Oklahoma, Tulsa. You know, a woman says she was raped. Then later, after they burned down all the black people's town, took the money and killed the soldiers that came to help them and bombed them from the sky. She said, I didn't, that was a lie. I just made it up. But it was over. It doesn't matter. And so when we look at this Haitian situation, the treatment of Africans that they labeled as Haitians to make us feel that they're different from us, but they were African. You can go all the way back to Montel Bay, what is that bay? In Florida.
The Bay?
Gitmo, what they call it,
Guantanamo Bay.
Guantanamo Bay. See, America had a position that people from Cuba, especially the European aspect of Cubans, if they got to the shore of America, they were automatically given help and assistance. But when the Haitians got to the shore, they sent them to Guantanamo Bay. When the Asians and Europeans came for immigration, they sent them to Angel Island or Ellis Island. They were treated different than the ones that went to Guantanamo Bay. Jesse Jackson went down there, and the Haitians that were trying to escape the brutal dictator that they had put in the government in Haiti, and they overthrew Aristide, who was duly elected. They wanted to kill him, but Maxine Waters went down to South Africa and brought attention to it, and so they couldn't assassinate him. But they outlawed him coming back, and they outlawed his political party from voting because he wouldn't go along with their script of exploiting the island. So they send these people to Guantanamo Bay and kept them there for years. Jesse Jackson went down there, and they wasn't processing them. They were dying of disease, mistreatment, all kind of problems. And you know, the people don't know that history. They're not taught what happened to the Haitians and why America didn't give them the same rights as they gave the Cubans who came over in boats, escaping Cuba and Castro. And they just said, you are automatically given amnesty and you can come on in. They didn't do that to the Africans, Haitians, as they call them. Then you got to go all the way, you know, to other issues with Haiti. Especially they were still mad about the revolution. Then they're mad about Guantanamo Bay. And then at the same time, you look at the struggle that the Haitians exemplified in their resilience, and they didn't want it to be an example to African people abroad. So you look at the struggle in the context that the attack on the Haitians was not just an attack on the Haitians in Springfield, but an attack on the whole African community in diaspora, as Rashaki, Maskani, and that collaborative is talking about the Blacks in diaspora, or Africans in diaspora, that we are the same people. How would they tell Rashaki Maskani from a Haitian until they start speaking with an accent? If they were just walking down the street, how could they tell the difference? See, and so you look at the Springfield thing. It's not just that Trump and A.D. Vance said it. It's the thousands of white people that use that as an excuse to go down there and terrorize the African people, the same way they're terrorizing them, as Mshinda say, in Louisiana. And they use their jurisprudence system there are different ways you can oppress and abuse people. You can do it psychologically, or you can do it by discrimination with life-giving, life-saving distribution of goods and services. You can do it by discrimination in the social services institution and the criminal justice system. And you can do it physically by lynching and hanging. And this is what Rahh and Sharara was saying, that it's the same old song. And the beats come on, you got to play on. But our children and our families don't teach and educate our people to think differently about where they are and about who they are. Once you know who you are, it don't make no difference where you are. But if you don't know who you are, it's like Malcolm said, Black people say they ain't from Africa. He said, well, if a cat have kittens in the oven, that don't make them biscuits. And so, therefore, just because you born in America, don't make you not African. But they have convinced millions of our people that they are separate from the African struggle. That's why Africa still struggles in many parts. There are some progressive parts, but there are some that are still living in the bushes, living in swamp and in challenging situations, And as Walter Rodney wrote in How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, in his the Chancellor Williams, in his book, The Destruction of Black Civilization. If you don't read them and don't study them, John G. Jackson, The Origin of African Civilization in Ethiopia, you will have the vision of yourself, or you call yourself an ex-slave, not an African in exile. If you don't listen to your own teachers of consciousness, and they're taught our parents that you can't even think liberation will lynch you. That's why many of our parents don't even talk about the horrors of the Holocaust of enslavement to us. They just tell us, get an education, you got to be 10 times smarter than the white man, and you can't take your intelligence away. That's what Booker T. Washington was talking about. Pull yourself up by your bootstrap. Then he helped start the Tuskegee Institute, and for the purposes of what? Training Black in skills and vocations. That's what A&M means, agriculture and mechanical. All them initials. So they didn't want to teach us the social sciences, how to think. Just use your hands. Which is good. You need to know multiple skills. A lot of people out the South come out, they can fix cars, they can do electricity work, they did everything themselves. They were so far away from town, you had to learn how to build things. There were Black men that could build a house with a hammer and nails and wood and stuff and build things because they were just self-reliant.
Right.
And so when we look at Haitians and we look at the struggle of Haitians, that's our struggle too. Like they struggled and struggling for liberation. And then they, as Oshara said and Mshinda, they focuses on the gangs and the crime. You find that in America. The number one criminals in the world is American. You understand? They don't steal cars and rob banks. They steal countries. They steal countries and set up their own. You understand? And they use religion as a process. And I'm not knocking the beautiful things that religion has done for many Black people. Many of our struggles were based on religious movements. Many liberation struggles were based on religious movement, maybe Christian or Islamic. And many of our people get our morals and ethics from religion. We get married, we have funerals, we do things, that baptisms and all that thing, and we try to follow the ethics of Christianity. But those are just things that come from the oldest sacred texts of African people and the hieroglyphics that's been translated into the Hosea, the first sacred books. And you can see that many of the verses in the Bible, from Psalms and all of that, come from those texts, those ancient texts that the European has corrupted. Like he's corrupted everything that he ever put his hands on, because he comes with a different mentality. Most people just want to live on the planet, enjoy life, and get along. Most people.
Professor Rahh, excuse me.
They want to rule. Go ahead.
Dr. Charles Alexander and Attorney Larry Fields just joined.
Good, good. We'll get their take. Brother Fields, how you doing?
I'm well this evening. How are you doing, Professor?
Attorney Fields, it's good to see you, brother.
It's
Listen,
my pleasure.
we were talking about Springfield, Ohio.
Yeah, I heard your comments on that, and it reminds me of a piece that I'm reading now by Noam Chomsky. And I'll just read you directly. We are supposed to love markets. We have grand theories, economists, and Federal Reserves trying to preserve markets, and yet there is a huge industry devoted to undermining them, and it's right in front of your eyes. But none of these contradictions can be seen. Actually, they do the same with elections. The goal of elections now is to undermine democracy. They are run by the public relations industry, and they're certainly not trying to create informed voters who will make rational choices. They are trying to delude people into making irrational choices. The same techniques that are used to undermine markets are used to undermine democracy. It's one of the major industries in the country, and it's basically working, and its basic workings are invisible. And that's, just basically where we are, and we've been here. You've seen that. It's amazing. Nazi propagandist Goebbels used the same. He was a fan of the way marketing was done in the United States, and the individuals that want to rule over the masses understand that, and they have quadrupled down on it, and that's where we are.
Yeah, and to compliment what you're saying, the demonization of the Haitians in Springfield, it is just as bad as what you were saying with regards to the undermining of the people's minds. But they try to come up with excuses why they think the way they think. But as Rashaki was saying, Neely Fuller, Dr. Khalid Muhammad once said,
absolutely.
He said, white folks are trained from birth to discriminate. They come up in households that train them and educate them. The Ku Klux Klan had youth camps. John Birch Society had youth camps, still have them. And people, most of their private military schools, West Point and Cedar, sitting there, all of them were racist institutions that taught the military that this country is ours. And everybody else, we give them the illusion of citizenship, but we suppress their vote. We suppress their economic power, and we suppress their educational attainment. And then, you have to see it that it's like what we were talking about before. Here's Biden saying they want peace in the Middle East. They want a negotiated resolution that leads to a one-state for the Palestinian and peace for Israelis, who has expanded their borders after each war. Israel is a little small area. If you look it up, it's just a dot. And then they want to grow. And the Europeans are helping them grow because they're using the same way America took over the United States from the Native Americans. They just started killing them. And they said it was wild, wild west. And it wasn't wild till they came. And
Right.
the point is that you have to understand the undermining of Biden, saying he wants a peaceful resolution, but sending bombs and intelligence, sending his submarines and nuclear weapons on the borders to intimidate and keep the people suppressed. How do you say you for negotiation and you continue arming the people? If you were robbing a bank and I gave you the guns to rob the bank, they'll arrest me too if they find that out. They just punished 2 parents for not supervising their children away from guns and charged them for negligence or some type of crime, some even for murder, because their kids got access to their guns and they didn't do the right thing. Well,
Right.
what about you giving the Israelis the weapons to commit genocide? Here are people with no air force, no military apparatus. You know, they fighting in flip-flops and gowns. You understand? They don't have masks, they don't have and the only weapons they got are the ones that European countries sell them by way through other Arabic countries. They shooting rockets. Rockets are like fireworks in America. They shoot out rockets on fireworks on 4th of July. And and then they give Israel, Obama gave them domes that keeps missiles from coming into Israel. Didn't charge them nothing, but don't. And then they neutralized the Arab world by corrupt Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Syria, all of them. Instead of them unified, their leaders are corrupt. And so therefore, they did one thing back in 72, and they did an oil embargo, and they had us all lining up to get gas. But after that, America said, that'll never happen again. They bought enough oil and stored it in oil places. And second, they neutralized all that leadership over that. But my point is that you have to see through the cobweb of confusion, when it comes down to them separating us from who we are as a people, to the point that most Africans in America who see themselves as American citizens don't see themselves as a part of the Haitian community. Dr. Charles, do you have a comment?
Yes, I agree with everything that's been said. And in terms of the indoctrination that we see in terms of how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive this place. And in your statement, Dr. Rahh, about how, they had the children's auxiliaries of all these white supremacist organizations. In 1894, the Daughters of the Confederacy was founded. And the purpose of the Daughters of the Confederacy was to, proffer the myth of the lost cause. Mm-hmm. And that slavery was a benevolent institution, and that there was happy darkies, and there's this antebellum South, and da 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 da. But more importantly, in 1905, the Daughters established a a national department that was in charge of reviewing educational materials and textbooks for information that wasn't favorable to the South. And so this thing that we see now And so one of our greatest problems is that the reason, because we're not always actively engaged in studying, our own history, and because we tend to kind of, I don't know if we misinterpret, or if we we kind of use as an excuse, the history as they teach it isn't relevant. That's not true. It is relevant, because we have to understand all of the times, not just the times in which there is a Black face. And if we understand all of the times, we can better understand where there are times where the Black face is intentionally being excluded. And so why I'm saying that is because even now, when we're having this conversation about, maybe not necessarily today, but just in general, we're having this conversation about the banning of textbooks and what's being taught in schools. This is not a now thing. This is a forever thing. Mm-hmm. This has always been the case. This was the reason why there was a Black Studies movement. This is the reason why there was a Black Arts movement. This is the reason why there was, the open education movement in the latter 60s and early 70s. This open enrollment, excuse me. Mm-hmm. This is an aspect, an element of the perpetual fight and struggle in which we're engaged. And so we're vulnerable all the time to the dastardly marketing, because we're not always doing our homework for a variety of reasons. Now, some people aren't able to, because they're literally in the grind. They are they're overwhelmed by life itself. But even those who actually have leisure time in which they could engage in reading, oftentimes choose to get engaged in some kind of fanciful flights from reality, right? And so we have to engage this thing and approach it like the war that it is. And until we do that, we're just kind of subject to the whims of the aggressor.
Mm. Yeah, great. Yeah, I agree. I mean, from a psychological perspective, you're right. But see, how we used to say, when we used to be teaching in the 60s, they would say, we're trying to brainwash our people, and that we were just romanticists about Africa. Africa didn't do those great things. We just making it up. That they didn't really do anything. And most of our historians are just historians that's romanticizing Africa. And so my point is that we as a people, when they begin to do those things, as Oshara said, we built independent schools, and they undermined them. Just like they undermined Tulsa. They brought in charter schools, and at the same time, people would send their kids to public schools because they didn't have to pay. But most private schools that were Afro-centered, they had to pay or volunteer and help keep the school going. And many of the people that taught in those schools were people that loved the children. And as Dr. Charles would say, Haki say, you never send your kids to schools where the teachers don't love them. And there's a difference between teaching because of money and teaching because you care. And so we transformed a lot of space into Black sacred institutions when we started Black studies. Many of us that were revolutionaries that started. We didn't teach Black people the way white people taught white people or taught other people that was in their classes in the social science. We taught them a special. We brought in tapes of Dr. Ben, tapes of John J. Jackson, tapes of Chancellor Williams, the Pan-African Secretariat Conferences, Farrakhan, Malcolm, playing Malcolm in class, and and that threw people off. And we graded different. You understand? We looked at grading Black people, at least I did, as reparations, because we recognized that these white folks been given degrees for years, giving people doctorates, and the society is sicker than it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
The doctors need a doctor. You understand? Because what's in their mind, their racism, trump all of that. And that's why you see so many people voting for Trump. It ain't what Trump doing. It's the people, the 70 million people voted for him. No matter what he say and what he do. Because he's just a front.
He's a figurehead for what they believe otherwise.
That's my point.
And so with that, Baba Rahh, again, you see this point in which we are totally confused by what we've experienced over the past 20 years. And so, so there was a Southern strategy, right, that started, at the end of the 60s, early 70s. And so we're already dealing with, the oppressive forces that don't want us to vote. And so it's like as if people have forgotten that we've been fighting an educational, civic, just an overall educational piece that includes civics and history and every other thing that you can imagine. And again, that the fact that we were fighting both a freedom rights and a civil rights and a Black power struggle, we were engaged in those things, all of that actually means something. And it's as if we really believe that some point in time that white supremacy went away. And so we start telling ourselves that Donald Trump emboldened them. They didn't need emboldened. They didn't need to be emboldened. They white supremacists. This is how they think all the time. And so before there was a Donald Trump, there was a Tea Party that arose as a result of not even the election of Barack Obama. The fact that Barack Obama spoke at the National Convention in 2004. The Tea Party was well established by the time he was in office because they knew it was coming. And so we struggle with how we conceptualize and understand not just history, but the present. But the reason why we struggle with our understanding and our conceptualization and understanding of the present is because we struggle with our understanding and conceptualization of our past for a variety of reasons, most of which have something to do with the enemy. But at the end of the day, that's what the enemy is supposed to do, psychological warfare. That's how the enemy wins. And so we have to recognize the game and fight accordingly. And so it doesn't make sense to continuously send our kids or go willfully ourselves into hostile territories and then not create what's necessary for the buttressing effect.
Yeah.
So, so we'll say things like, the Chinese, they got Saturday schools. Okay, well, if you think that works, do it. But don't just sit here and talk about they're not educating our kids and then don't do what's necessary to support our kids. And if you can't do it on a more, larger basis, do it for your family. Start at home. That's one of the things that Dr. Neely Fuller teaches. It's like before you start organizing, you got to discipline your household, right? And so if you can't make the change to deal with white supremacy, how are you going to get a group to make the change and deal with white supremacy? And so it is these types of things that we have. That's just a part of our constant struggle. And so first of all, we just have to embrace the thought that this is the nature of our existence, resistance. And so we got to resist. We got to squarely identify what the problem is. The problem is white supremacy. And then we figure out what our relative responses are to it. But that's kind of what was informing my two questions that I had for Baba Karanga last week. It was just simply that, do we think that the cultural piece negates our involvement in, you know, the political system that exists in the United States. And as we're, you know, as we're toiling with that, we also have to figure out how we show up relative to the diaspora. And so to this conversation today, many of us believe them stereotypes about whatever the Haitians are doing, both in Haiti and in Springfield. We've internalized that racism, right? And so, but if we study and understand the continental African and the diaspora African, then we have a better understanding and appreciation for what we are experiencing, and we're less vulnerable to the deeds of the enemy, because the enemy gonna do what the enemy does.
Yeah, and
I think at some point, I agree with everything you said, Doc. Good to see you midweek. But I think at some point we've got to come to the mass realization that this is an illegitimate system. We believe that this system is virtuous and aspirational, in part because we have been integrated into it, and in part because we have been inculcated with it as a legitimate system from, you know, the moment you watch any media. By the time a child goes to kindergarten,
But that's the purpose of the Black middle class.
What did you say, Doc?
That is the purpose of the Black middle class.
Yes, but are we fulfilling that?
No, we are. That's what I am saying to you. The purpose of the Black middle class is to do what you just said. The purpose.
Oh, no,
purpose. And so this is what E. Franklin Frazier said when he wrote his book.
100% correct.
That the Black middle class is really a functionary for white supremacy. And so if you give X number of us access, we will maintain the status quo.
That is 100% safety valve individuals to
Absolutely.
keep this whole thing intact. And we've got to be smarter, because even in your middle classness, you should understand, you should have a closer look at what is going on, and the fact that you still have a boot on your neck, because you can see hand to hand what your competition is doing inside of the classroom, inside of the corporate, if in fact they let you in the boardroom, and what you're not getting. You know that you're not getting the banking that you should receive. I mean, you would have to put on blinders of mass proportions to not see the healthcare disparity, and the homeowner disparity, and the criminal. The state of Missouri. Shout out to our governor for murdering another innocent, perceived to be innocent Black man tonight, because they killed that brother tonight. With all of the opposition and all of the evidence pointing to his innocence, you killed him, and I doubt if you even paused for dinner tonight. So yeah, I mean, we continue to legitimate this system that has been at war with us since since they picked up many of us in Africa, the transatlantic slave business that they've thrived on, and it's just really almost. Yeah, you talk about individuals that vote against their interests, and I think that we are at this point at the top of the list.
Well, yeah, some of us, not all of us.
Well, no. But as a whole, we can't forget about the vast majority of us are suffering from this system.
Yeah, oppression continues, but see, it's a beautiful discussion we're having, because the collaborators, the Judge Thompson, Judge Clarence Thomas, and that brother Congressman from Florida, Lynda Donaldson, and also this Lieutenant Governor in North Carolina, they all said slavery was good. You'd be surprised at the collaboration that influences other Black middle class to think the way they think, because they give them prestigious positions and help them in many ways. This is why, you know, we want to help brother Dr. Who's running for president, independent, him and Dr. Abdullah, Cornel West.
Cornel West.
Yeah, we want to help him, but he's getting paid by white people to get on ballots in battleground states. Which I wanted him to stay to keep raising our issues, but because he knew he didn't have no chance, he didn't have no money.
But he's been, but that's the thing with Cornel West. Cornel West has been around with white folks for a whole long time.
Yeah, well, yeah, and he married them.
And so, but and everybody thought it was cool because he was on TV.
Yeah.
But he been riding with folks. That's why he was on TV. He was on TV because he was riding with white folks.
Yeah, a lot of them do both. They ride with us to keep us in line, and they get paid by white folks.
Is there anyone on TV?
Many of your major civil rights organizations were corrupted by white people.
Absolutely.
They got paid big salaries. When you look at Operation Push, you look at the Urban League, you look at CORE, all their executives, and even Action
Network.
Action Network. All of them are getting paid big money.
Yes.
Well, and that goes all the way back to the NAACP opposing the Honorable Marcus Garvey.
Yeah, not only that.
And so the difference about the NAACP relative to other so let's say the NAACP versus the National Astronauts Network. The NAACP is essentially funded, informed, and organized by white folks. Period.
Yeah, the Spring
National Action Network is created by Al Sharpton. So he just makes a decision to go that way, right? He makes a decision that he gonna sell out. That was just a decision that he made. NAACP started out that way. The Urban League started out that way. They started out as paternalistic organizations that allow Black folks access. That's how they started. And then they put out the Black folks. That's why they had a contentious relationship with Du Bois, because there were certain things that he was like, y'all just not aggressive enough.
Right.
But at the end of the day, that's how it was started. And now, what W.B. Du Bois doesn't seem to have consistently done was fight, even when he was getting favor, it doesn't seem like he was consistently fighting for, Ida B. Wells or any of the other sisters who were affiliated. But again, that's a part and function of the time. At the end of the day, what it was a paternalistic institution run primarily by Jewish Americans. Right.
Yeah. W.B. Du Bois talented 10 notion that the top 10% of Black intellectuals should lead and things of this nature. And and by the way, is Marcus Garvey going back to Africa movement. But Marcus Garvey was talking about going to Africa for economic reasons. And
WB jumped in on that. Right.
Yeah.
He jumped in on the demonization of Garvey. And by the way, today is like the 100-something commemoration of W.B. Du Bois writing to Booker T in response to the Georgia Exposition, words fittingly said or what have you. And so, because again, in that whole space with regard to the talented 10, Black folks, we don't understand where, that's not W.B. Du Bois's concept. He wrote about that concept, but that wasn't his concept. He incorporated that.
Yeah, but the same thing he was against Garvey for, he ended up doing.
Tearing
up his passport in Africa.
Yes, he spent the majority of his life trying to figure out how to integrate into this system, only to be, rebuffed time and time again, and then to die in exile.
And the same thing with Martin Luther King. Him and Malcolm began to meet and discuss how they could work together. It's a challenging. But the point is that we have to continue to educate. That's why level set, as well as our collaboration, is going to continue to try to put these type programs on for the purpose of educating. And we like the diversity of thought from Mshinda, Oshara, especially the inclusion of Dr. Charles and Attorney Fields and Lynda from Florida. I mean, that's a good flavor because we put these on YouTube. And according to Rashaki, that we got over 600 hits for that program we had with Dr. Karenga on YouTube. There's people watching it, over 600. So we're reaching people beyond our just discussions here. And another one, when we discussed politics, we had over 300 hits. So, you know, we got to build, and we're going to build level set, our collaboration, which we hope to have other featured guests on. We're going to try to get, I'm hopefully that we can try to get Haki or Hakeem Mahadibuti or brother at the Temple University. God, yeah, man, it's
Molefe Asante.
Molefe Asante. I'm gonna give him a call tomorrow because me and him is real cool. And when he comes out here for Kwanzaa and him and his family, we got pictures and everything together, and see if he'll come on for the level for our collaboration. And then if any of you know any mainline marquee names or historical names that we could try to get, you know, for our shows to educate people, because they're not going to pick up the books or they're going to be watching CNN or MSNBC or Fox, whatever they watch, you know. But we present a platform whereas that those that are looking for the truth can find it on our platform. And so that's going to be the continuation. Brother Rashaki, are you there? He may have stepped away for a minute. The point is that we got so much to do work. The struggle continues. There have been people educating our people for years, but the overwhelming power of the system to win their hearts and minds with favor and money, employment, welfare, social institutions, to give them things to make them be more loyal to them and stay out of activities. We forget how the system manipulates, and Dr. Attorney Fields was saying, and brother Dr. Charles, that the family is the institution that they really want to break up. You see, they try to keep their family, the majority of their family, intact, even though they have a high divorce rate too, and problems with their children too. But at the same time, they intentionally want to make sure that the Black male was incarcerated or given a felony. If a Black woman say, I don't want a man that's been arrested, I mean, she didn't took off about, 7/10 of Black male. You understand? I mean, and when you set goals that the system has taught you not to want, and then put those labels on us as a people. And then we got to quit role playing, as Dr. Charles is a psychologist. A lot of these kids are imitating Americans. Gangsters, that was way before we was out of slavery. They had gangsters. You understand? I mean, it was gangsters that came over into this country. Christopher Columbus wasn't no damn explorers. That's what they say they were. They came in for gold and money and ways to steal.
That is it. That is it.
We celebrate that. That's like having your kids watch the Pirates of the Caribbean. That's what pirates were. They're criminals.
Okay. Oh yeah.
And they would, and so like all of this stuff. So this time last year I was in Kemet. One of the things I did for the first time that I could remember on the way, because the trip was so long, is I watched the entire, I watched Gone with the Wind from beginning to end. Rhett Butler is a gangster. He was a fence. He sold stolen goods to both sides of the military. That's what he was. But so like, but none of this stuff really comes to mind for folks. We don't think of it this way. You got folks running around naming their kids Nitty, and people calling themselves Nitty, Capone, God, for all of that kind of stuff, internalizing all of that madness, right? And but that's what this thing does. It promotes violence because that's what it is. It can really only promote what it is. And
that's what A. Brown said, violence in America is
like apple pie.
And
American as cherry pie.
As cherry pie, yeah.
So that is its #1 export.
Whenever you have people that can determine the right and wrong and punish you through their jurisprudence system, they're in control. That's the first thing colonizers do and imperialists do and invasions do. They set up their own jurisprudence system, law system to determine what's right and wrong. Why white punish Indians for doing wrong, Native Americans in America for doing wrong, but the Native American couldn't hold trial on them. It's illegal for them to put white people on trial. And that's the same thing that we are doing. We're following European laws, and they determine the punishment, the jury system. They can manipulate the jury to find you guilty when you're innocent. They've done that to this brother that they just killed, as Dr. Fields was talking about. I think it was in Montana, Dr. Fields.
No, that was in Missouri.
Missouri.
Tonight. And they have, as Dr. Amos Wilson says, they have a monopoly on violence.
Yeah.
They have the monopoly on violence in America and abroad. Now, how in the world, as you were speaking earlier about the Palestinians, how in the world can you be accused of terrorism for attempting to, or actually for asserting yourself against a settler? You settled in my home, and I assert myself, and I'm a terrorist?
And so again, Larry,
mind game.
Was an easy
what a mind game. What a mind game.
That's the easy one. And again, that's my concern with our international thought and appreciation. So many of us really believe, when I'm talking about Black folks, we really believe that Israel has a right to protect itself. We don't understand that Israel is the aggressor. We've bought into the myth that Israel is being aggressed upon by the Arab world, and it just isn't true. And so they're committing war crimes. But of course, the United States government and Britain and France, which are the entities that primarily established Israel, they literally make up the media monopoly. And so they distort reality. And people who are not willing or able to do their independent study remain vulnerable to it. And so now we're in a situation where the folks that we call or assume to be, leaders are sympathetic to the Israeli cause. So we can't expect, there's no reason to expect that, Sista, if she wins, is going to do anything different. Her husband is a Jew. I don't know if he's a Zionist, but he is a Jew. And she takes a whole bunch of money from AIPAC. Hakeem Jeffries takes a whole bunch of money from AIPAC. The brother in St. Louis who just beat Cori Bush takes the most money as of this year from AIPAC. More than half of the other Congressional Black Caucus is funded by AIPAC. How does that jive with the well-being of Black folks in any city or rural area in this United States when Black representatives, the clown down in Georgia right now, the clown here that everybody be talking about, Warnock, who is now at Ebenezer, takes money from AIPAC.
Yeah, and not only that, as Dr. Khalid Muhammad say, the so-called Jew, because most people think Judaism is a race.
Right. These are Europeans. These are Europeans who have Yes, who've come to a place that don't belong to them.
They're Germans. They're Germans.
They're Russians and Germans and Polish. They're Polish, German, and Russian Jews that were displaced, and now they are in the Middle East.
And most people think they're the biblical Israel.
And they are not, correct.
They think that's the Israel they talk about the Christian Bible. That ain't the same Israel. Like I said, how can you say God's a real estate agent and put some land specifically for you? Everybody come from an indigenous place. How you get from Germany over there into Palestine?
And that's,
Oh,
that becomes one of the
tell them why,
fights that
Doc.
we have.
Tell them why. Take them back to 1948 and tell them how they got over there.
Yeah, declaration that Ralph Bunche, they use a brother.
That's part of how Ralph Bunche got the Nobel Prize.
Yeah,
Because his involvement in all of that.
First, they wanted to go to African countries, but white folks already had that. And they wanted to go somewhere else. And then they settled for the Palestinians, and the Palestinians welcomed them in as guests. In fact, they went into Palestine.
So there was always people in that space. It was majority of Palestinian, and so before it became all it is, it was under the Ottoman Empire. It was under, and so it was a colony of the Ottoman Empire. The French told the Palestinians, if y'all align with us to fight the Ottoman Empire, we'll break you off. And that didn't ultimately happen. And then the British came in and did the same thing. They aligned with the British to help repel the Ottoman Empire in the First World War, and then it didn't uphold the end of the deal. They had already in 1917. That's when they did the Balfour Accord or whatever, and so they agreed to facilitate this process. Britain and France agreed to facilitate this process. Britain through the Balfour Accord and France through the Picot Agreement agreed to facilitate this process on behalf of the Zionist movement. So from 1917 into the 1930s and now, ultimately 48 with the creation of Israel, and they continue to fund it, and it's been no point in time since 1948 when Israel didn't have more armament than all of the Arab nations combined. There was never a time where Israel was at threat by the Arab nations, because the Arab nations never had the armament to compete with an Israeli army that was trained first by the British and then by the United States. It was just never an issue.
And equipped.
Yes. And they've been doing the same thing ever since 1948, and that is going out and doing mass exterminations and exiling the people in these land and culture graphs. This is what's been going on, since 48.
All right.
Can I interject something?
What's that?
Don't that sound like don't that sound like 1619?
It is the exact same thing.
It's the same playbook,
so
right?
At the same time that the United States is saying that Israel is entitled to Palestine, the United States has done nothing to relieve the indigenous people who they've now placed on reservations, right? And, doing nothing to reconcile the lives of Black folks here, right? And so that is the foolishness of the whole thing from our perspective, particularly when you have people with Black faces advocating and fighting on behalf of Israel and not for us. And so that part we gotta understand.
Well, through programs like this, we educate for those that want to be educated. There's a lot of people that don't want to be educated.
There's a lot of people who are educated about as much as they're gonna be.
Yeah, and so we just got to continue to struggle. All our great revolutionaries and educators of consciousness have had the same problems that we've had since we've been here. Harriet Tubman couldn't get everybody to escape. Some said, no, I'm gonna stay. It's the same thing with Garvey. A lot of people, were victimized by propaganda against the Garvey movement by Black people who spoke against it. We always have been up against the European who studies how to keep our people from thinking that they are African people that were enslaved. They still think they were slaves as a people. That slaves, they went to Africa to get slaves, not Africans. And brought them over here and enslaved them. And so we have to continue to do what we're doing. And young people, some young people, we're picking up the bloodstained banners of our forefathers and foremothers that struggled. And somebody's going to pick up ours. So
we got to fight until we die.
Yeah, that's what the bloodstained banner said. That's
what the song say.
Yeah.
I got a quick quote I want to read before you. Today is the birthday of Frances Harper. She's born in 1825, September 24th, 1825, and she was a suffragist and a poet and an activist of her time. But this kind of speaks to your critique of the government, Baba Rahh, and a government which can protect and defend its citizens. A government which can protect and defend its citizens from wrong and outrage and does not is vicious. A government which would do it and cannot is weak. And where human life is insecure through either weakness or viciousness in the administration of law, there must be a lack of justice. And where this is wanting, nothing can make up the deficiency. That was the case in the 1800s. That is the case now.
Yeah.
That this is, because even when we go back and we look at slavery, I mean, you can have a conversation with somebody today and they'll be like, oh, well, today it's institutional. It's always been institutional. Slavery was the business of the country. Yeah. Many of us think slavery was just, some crackers.
Planet. Yeah.
Yes. This has always been a United States government action. And before it was a United States government action, it was an action of the British government. It has never been a time when this was not an institutional act. And we struggle with these concepts because we don't engage the history and we don't understand that as part of the fight. And so that's where we come in, because we got to continue to do the consciousness raising, and that's what we're doing.
And Brother Fields can take, I don't know if you ever read the book In the Matter of Color by Judge Higginbotham.
Yes, I have read that book.
That's one of the best jurisprudence.
That book is incredible. In fact, one of the best lectures I've ever sat in on was by Judge Higginbotham. And once again, you talk about a crime. That man should have been a United States Supreme Court justice as well. That is that is one of the biggest crimes we've ever seen. But go ahead, Prof.
No, I was just saying that, man. He talked about how they just set up their own laws and determine right and wrong. And they can make themselves right and everybody else wrong.
The law is what they say it is.
Yeah.
And they make it up oftentimes as they go along.
Oh, yeah. All laws are, in the beginning of the first law, it was always after the fact. They didn't have no laws in the beginning. But when it was whatever the king said.
Well, I mean, just think about this, Prof. They came here and created laws that subjected the indigenous people to their will.
Yeah.
I mean, so when I listen to most of the travesty that we, deal with institutionally, as Dr. Alexander just stated, it's, a lot of that would be handled and even solved differently if we understood that we wake up every morning in a war with individuals that whose job one is to exploit us. But we think that at some point the system is going to fully, envelope us, and it's going to be fair. And it's not. You only get, to quote Mike Jones, you only get what you can take, and you can only keep what you can hold. That's it.
Man, anytime you can pass laws that say you have the right to take and kill other people. I mean, like you said, they pass a law that they can take people's lives who they determine deserved it.
And exactly. And it's ground zero is right here.
And
Right here in St. Louis. They cleared out everything, west, north, south of us, with respect to Indians. And named a street after the main war hero, Horny Avenue, right here in the heart of the Black neighborhood.
All right, that's good. Hey, look, when does Level Set come on? When y'all have y'all program, and what's happening with that?
Saturday, Saturday mornings at 9:00 Central Time, and we download it to YouTube by 11:00 Central Time. This week we plan on talking about some of the things that we spoke about today with respect to AIPAC and those that are benefiting the most from AIPAC, and how that's going to affect us.
Okay, so is it a link or just recordings?
It's a recording, and then we put the link out.
Okay. So you go to YouTube and just go Level Set.
That's correct.
Level Set, and it have all the programs.
It has all of them.
But the new one on AIPAC, that'd be #1 or what?
That would be number.
Search for it.
It should pop up #1 after we record that on Saturday.
And and it'd be ready by 11.
Yes, sir.
All right then. That's good. Rashaki, take us on home.
All right, tomorrow we have Asa Allah, and the topic is "Till Death Do Your Part."
Oh,
so that's going to be very interesting. All right, so we're going to go on and do our pause. Each one teach one in Conscious Corner. Everybody have a great one.
And we really appreciate Brother Fields and Brother Charles coming on this evening.
Thank you all for having me.
We always appreciate joining.
All right,
no question about it.
All right, y'all.
All right, fam. Thanks a million.